So far this year, the races have been the standard sprints you most commonly see in the POC. A 30-minute rush takes you from start to finish. But tonight will be the first endurance round of the season, perhaps changing the dynamic for some. Let's see who can outlast their competitors as we get ready to watch round 6 of the Porsche Owners Club Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes, our director, Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Laguna Seca will play host to our endurance round, so let's get a closer look at it with our track guide. Welcome to Laguna Seca. Located just east of Monterey, California, it's hard to deny that this is one of the more scenic American road courses. It travels up and down a hillside which not only offers spectacular views, but one of racing's most iconic corners. Clocking in at 2.25 miles in length, 11 turns split up the current configuration. I say current because up until 1988, the track's layout was shockingly simple with a mere 9 dangerously fast corners. But despite becoming a much more technical track, this difficult nature was retained in its modern form. Turn 6 in particular places an emphasis on precision and daring with its tricky dip at the apex and narrow racing line. But the most well-known spot on the track is of course the corkscrew. Blind and kinked on entry, it then whips the driver through a chicane which drops you nearly 60 feet. It's earned a reputation worldwide for forcing even the most daring competitors to second-guess themselves. But there's honestly a refreshingly wide variety in types of corners, making it a perfect track for driver coaching and training. Elevation changes, differing cambers, and every sort of apex imaginable leaves seasoned veterans and newcomers alike spending hours trying to perfect a lap. With the track becoming popular for hosting IMSA, IndyCar, and MotoGP in its recent history, it also brings out lots of vintage racers due to the Monterey historics each year. Likely to remain a fixture on the American racing scene, this legendary circuit is almost always high on drivers' best of lists. Its history and its uniqueness are sure to delight all for years to come. I like that this is the track they've used for the endurance race because this is a circuit that's very familiar with it being free content for iRacers, Joey.
Lots of people know Laguna Seca. You don't just have to be in iRacing to know that it has been throughout a lot of different sims, but here we are at the virtual Laguna, 11 turns, 2.238 miles exactly, and lots of elevation changes here. When I think of Laguna, and especially old Laguna, remember this is the kind of older, not the new repave since the last couple months in the real world. It is low grip out here. Lots of elevation down into the Andretti hairpin, known as turn number 2, your biggest and best passing area. And then the other very famous section, the corkscrew, way up there at the top end of the track map where you plunge down 100 plus feet. And it is all the way downhill through Rainy Curve, through turn number 10, flattens out a little bit through that final turn number 11 where another good passing opportunity is out there as long as you're confident on the brakes, and then it's that short sprint to the finish line. Hopefully we won't see it end in fireworks like some real world endurance racing here at Laguna.
Exactly, and it can get a little spicy at that last corner if it is tight, so we'll keep an eye on that. But first, we do want to talk about the sponsors of this series, including Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com, and Game Changer Wealth, helping you become a game changer with wealth. Contact them today at GameChangerBR.com or at 225-664-2565. Now, as for the championship, Matt Steele has been really running away with things up at the top. He actually has 80 points right now over Doug Baccignone, who sits in second. About 10 points behind Jeff Schulem.
And Joe, this is the prototypes here. So this is the BJ Fulton that's on top with 68 points, with Michael Johnson there, 21 points behind. Kelderman, Sagar Dawan. And I'm actually looking through our entry field right now. We've got 9 GTPs entered here. So the majority of the drivers that you see on this screen are present at Laguna.
Apologies. I was doing cross-checking and forgot that I have GT1s at the top of my list. This is the ones I was looking at. Jeff Schulam back there in third position, chasing with Mark Rondeau in a very close fight between himself, Federico Del Toro, who's been having some good results lately, and Larry Haas. Only 9 points between fourth, fifth, and sixth, but it's still only just before halfway into the season, so a lot could change from here in these top 10 in the GT1s. Only 12 drivers have actually competed in the GT1 class so far this season, so even the very back of it with Jim Slavic in 12 could maybe jump up. But as I said, it's a bit of a different race today, Joey, so why don't you run us down the race details?
Round 6 of 13, so we're just shy of halfway here, and it is the multi-class format. So we've got the Porsche GTP cars coupled with the Porsche GT3s. Those are the two options out there. The big difference today is that 90-minute race. We're no longer doing that 30-minute. It is a full 90 minutes, so we're going to have pit stops. The drivers are going to be having to responsible for filling up the car with fuel and making sure you got everything to go throughout that entire 90 minutes. And then the change here this season, that open setup, but it is staying stagnant throughout the season. The drivers, once they find something nice, call it a baseline, they'll probably stick with it, adjust it a little bit per track, but for the most part, it's the same car underneath them.
Exactly. And right now, the car underneath BJ Fulton looks very, very fast. He has been able to take the provisional pole away from Ezra Kelderman. It was closer before, about 4 thousandths of a second between P1 and P2. Matt Steele, no shock there, is our provisional pole sitter in the GT1 class. So BJ Fulton, here you can see the number 1 next to his name, and with about 0.8 of a second over Ezra with a minute 11 lap times. It's actually a fairly good gap.
It's moving around Laguna Seca. You say 111s, and you're right, it's a little bit of a gap back there between first, second, and then back to third. But I look at kind of the spread between really the top 5. Jad Duncan, who's also put down a 111. So they're all separated by, call it 3/4 of a second on a shorter circuit that is a little bit more technical. And remember, the more you take advantage of kind of the track limits here at Laguna, the more your lap time will drop. But if you overstep that limit and pick up that 1x, it just kind of disallows that entire lap.
Not only that, I always think to turn 6, where if you push that limit a little bit too far, we've seen so many drivers in their races prematurely just dipping it off into the right-hand side as we follow Fulton up to turn 6 here soon. This is turn 4, another very fast one that you don't want to go too wide on. And then here comes turn 5, uphill, a lot of compression into it. And this is the one that I was talking about, underneath the bridge and whipping through this swift kink that's it has bit so many over the years.
And it's got that huge breadbox curb, that giant orange curb at the apex. So if you turn in maybe a skosh too early, you make impact with that front left on that giant curb, you're going to cause damage to the suspension. You're definitely going to have a messed up race car. And honestly, it's probably going to bounce you out into the gravel. And then if you turn in too late, you can completely miss the apex altogether, and then you're going to find yourself in the gravel no matter what. So yeah, turn 6, high commitment, very tricky corner.
Not seeing anybody improving right now. They're going to be starting their last flying laps, at least Ezra Kelderman will be here in his little machine. Michael Johnson, only 6th right now, but he tends to race a little bit better. We've seen that pretty consistently so far this season. And Kelderman, last lap, yeah, that one didn't count, so he must have had an off track somewhere. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Schulam is looking like he's about 0.3 slow, at least in this early stages. He's going to have to really pick it up from here in the second half of the lap.
I think that gap is definitely present in that GT class, you know, that half second between Steele and Bacchignone as one of the GTP cars gets by the GT3. But I think that the meat and potatoes of this GT1 class, as they call it, they're all 122. So Bacchignone 22.4, Schulam 22.5, Federico Del Toro 22.7. So there's 3 drivers that are only separated by a few tenths of a second.
AJ Roper just took 3rd away from Kelderman. Fulton's going to park it, so he doesn't see improvement on this lap. Meanwhile, watching Schulem, yeah, I'm showing him quite slow, about 3 seconds down. And of course, he sends it into pit lane because of that. Leclerc is coming up next, and he is going to carry it on. Kelderman will also park it. He doesn't see himself finding any more time. What about Michael Johnson? Looks like he might have a little bit more underneath him. The 9 car hits the timing line, and it is an improvement, a 1:11.9, but he stays P6 as it wasn't enough to surpass Duncan.
It wasn't, but it was an improvement, and now we have the top 6 GTP cars all in that 1:11 bracket. That's a pretty close field up front.
I like what we're seeing. Should have an exciting one, especially if everybody manages to keep it on the track, which is easier said than done here at Laguna Seca. So everybody's going to have to try really hard. This is a doozy of a circuit to pick for an endurance race because, like I said before, there's definitely some spots where one little hiccup can throw it all away in a hurry. And then on top of things, there's dealing with traffic. Remember, multi-class this season, Joey, for the first time in a long time, trying to find your way past the slower classes for those prototypes. That's going to be a bit annoying at times.
It can be, and I think that Laguna Seca, as tight and twisty as it is actually pretty wide in terms of the track surface, so lots of passing opportunities. However, there are still funnels on this racetrack where it's single wide.
All right, they're lining up, which means it's time for our starting grid. BJ Fulton will be starting on the pole with Dylan Scott in second. Then it's going to be AJ Roper in P3 with that last gasp in qualifying. Ezra Kelderman starts fourth. Bit low for him, honestly. Jad Duncan starts P5 and Michael Johnson sixth. Then it's Ian Roche in the 7th position, Dustin Heindel 8th, and then the last of our GTPs is Will Castillo starting 9th.
Cross into the GT field. Your pole sitter is that number 4 of Matt Steele. Doug Bacchignone will line up in 2nd place. Jeff Schulem, 3rd in class there. Federico Del Toro, 4th. Mark Rondeau, 5th. Robert Leclerc in 6th. And John Momeyer will round out the 7-car GT3 field.
So it might not sound like the largest of fields, but I think with the chaos that is multi-class traffic, it should keep things interesting throughout the 90-minute race that we've got ahead of us. And on top of it, the other thing we have to remember is they will have to make pit stops at some point during this race, Joey. So I expect the drivers that have done their homework and know what they're going to do fuel-wise and have practiced their pit entry and exit will be fine. Those who have not, good luck.
I guess that's the best way to phrase it. You're right. However, at Laguna, pit entry, pretty forgiving. It is very, very sharp. However, the radius of the corner, incredibly similar to the final turn number 11 back there. So you're not changing a whole lot. I guess the exit is definitely the more doozy part, because if you don't practice pit exit on cold tires, which I don't know how you would do in iRacing to have hot tires, you're going to have another one coming to you in a black flag and all sorts of mess. It is a little bit of a tedious pit exit.
Narrow, and you need to make sure you know where your braking point, because you're taking a hairpin that isn't the normal racetrack. So those who have not practiced might be caught out a little bit. Here we go. Pace car is already in since they're doing a short pace lap for this one. BJ Fulton has control of the field, but he has to wait until they get the signal from the flag stand. And there it is. Green flag is out. He doesn't get the greatest of jumps behind him. They're 3 wide coming up and across the hill through turn 1. Oh, we got a wreck in the back. That looks like, I think, Ian Roche getting kind of tipped down to the inside. He catches it with a little glance of the wall. Meanwhile, behind them, it looks like Steele will lead the GT1 field through, although they have their own problems.
Yes, and now we've got, I count, 4 cars turned around at the exit of turn number 2, and it was involving Ian Roche, that number 5 GTP car that was spun around. I think it was Will Castillo, that orange car in the back, that was also involved in that mess, as we've got a full course yellow on the opening lap.
So for those not familiar with this series, they have a system in place where if they accrue so many incident points on the first lap, the caution will be thrown automatically. You don't see it after this, but this is just to ensure that nobody winds up basically well far behind in case an incident like we saw here at the start happens and they're just stuck behind the 8 ball for the entire race. So, unfortunately, this will slow things down, but the good thing is this is going to sort of bring everybody back together and allow for a restart that's single file. So hopefully that'll help the next time around, make it a little bit cleaner.
Administratively and race control, this is the right thing to do. So this is the initial start, 3 wide between Roche and Castillo. So watch the red and white Marlboro themed car just get turned from that left rear contact, the front right making contact, and then where the next mess happens is actually when the number 5 rejoins the racetrack right in the Andretti hairpin. He kind of rejoins in between the 2 apexes instead of continuing around to the left, and there goes some GT3 cars, one into another. I believe that was Momeyer and Rondeau getting together, as well as Doug Boccignone.
The good news is they have a spare car or two waiting for them, and looks like Mark Rondeau has taken his, but it doesn't look like Doug or Del Toro have used their spare car. Now, they don't have to, and that could help them down the line if they can repair it well enough that it'll drive fine. That means that they've still got that ace up their sleeve, Joey. But for Federico, he's now got to try and hustle to catch up to the field.
It's the right thing to do. If you can fix the damage, if it's repairable versus having to use the fast repair, and you can stay on the lead lap. There's the key, right? You have to stay on the lead lap. It's better to repair the damage than to use the fast repair. Save your lifeline for later in the race. You don't know if you're going to need it, but it's always nice to have that reserve parachute.
Acts as a bit of a safety net. And yeah, I definitely put this one on Roche. Not taking the pit exit, and unfortunately for Mark Rondeau, just wrong place, wrong time as Doug tried to move to the outside. The two came together and more cars kind of piled in, but it was at low speed, so I think there was minimal damage for most involved.
I don't want to be too hard on Ian Roche. Yes, I agree that if this was real world, that would be a penalty on the number 5 car. However, he was trying to keep it to the inside apex there. It's not like he just blasted back out onto the middle of the track. It's just very unfortunate that the GT cars were having their start. Everybody was stacked up and immediately on top of them there in that section of the racetrack. So, yeah, the fault definitely goes to the number 5, but I don't think it was malicious by any intent as we kind of watch the in-car here from John Momeyer. Let's see it through the driver's point of view. To the C's part for Momeyer, and he gets through the middle, car spinning left and right, just a little bit of nose contact there, but great heads-up driving to actually jump on the brakes.
Yeah, did a great job keeping that from becoming a bigger incident, and because he didn't get any damage from that light little touch, he's able to pick up a couple positions, and he's going to restart in 4th in class. Now, they've got Ian Roche in the middle of them. Kind of surprised they haven't tried to wave him by, but they should be getting going this next time by, as I believe they've shortened the pace lap.
Get another shot of the initial start here. Let's see here. There's Will Castillo looking in the mirror, already 3 wide here. So gonna ride on board. Ian's gonna get turned. There's just a little bit and you know, Joe, I'll have to go back and look at it on my screen because from that point of view, I wonder if it was almost more netcode contact. 3 wide is aggressive at Laguna Seca, I'll say that, but it didn't look like they were too crowded.
Yeah, I think it was understandable because definitely Will saw an opportunity. He knew he needed to try and take it where it was possible, and everybody just got a little bit tangled in that. Here we go. Looks like they're getting ready for the restart. Fulton once again on the top spot. AJ Roper will restart in 2nd instead as he overtook Dylan Scott on the initial start here. Question is, can he hold on to it, or is Dylan going to try and pounce and give himself that spot back? Here we go, around the final corner. This one does not require you to wait for the green flag. He can go whenever he pleases, but BJ's going to wait for it, and now he goes. And this gives AJ Roper a great chance not just to take second, but maybe the lead here. If he wants to attack down into the first corner, he's going to go around the outside to try and do it. Breaks as deep as he dares, but there's just not enough grip there.
But he's got the nose up alongside, and he's got the inside line here to turn number 3. AJ Roper to the lead. What a nice move to be able to hang that nose right on the rear end of our leader. But BJ Fulton got an excellent exit there. I don't think the battle's over.
I could have sworn that one was going to be over on the exit of Andretti. He was so far back, but launched it off of there. And Roche has already managed to get by all of the GT3 cars. Now he's trying to see if he can get by Will Castillo, who he came together with on that first lap to cause this yellow. They'll come up to the braking for the corkscrew. Oh my goodness, he sends it in and returns a little bit of a hello to Will.
I think that Ian wants to get through the back of the field rather quickly. He probably feels a little wronged off of that initial start there, and he actually drives off the track a little bit, as well as we watch Mark Rondeau back here on the back of John Momeyer coming through turn number 10. I love that turn and how much camber it's got. See, it opens up this passing opportunity. Mark Rondeau around the outside, puts the power down, gets him by, and actually John Momeyer is going to try to follow him through.
Very smooth from the 11. Baccignone with a good run, seeing if he could try and overtake as well, and he's much farther on the brakes down into the hairpin. That's going to put Momeyer down into 6th. So those positions gained have disappeared through his fingers pretty quickly.
And actually Federico Del Toro right on the back of Momeyer as well. So as Baccignone starts to move back up through the field after the first lap incident, seems like Momeyer kind of slipping a little bit further back.
Coming up to turn 5, already on lap 5 of this one. That yellow definitely sucked up a bit of the time here with 8 minutes now gone in this race. Momeyer has at least seemingly stopped things for now. Federico's not been able to get through. Meanwhile, Ezra Kelderman lost a position to Michael Johnson early in this race, and now he's lost the car hard into the pit entry barrier. Who was that got into him? I think that was Dustin Heindel.
I believe you're right. I believe it was Dustin Heindel that could not avoid the accident, probably has a little bit of front-end damage, and I'm going to try to explain this the best as I can, because these GTP cars have brake-by-wire systems, and it can be very, very easy to lock up the rear end, especially in those threshold braking zones. Oh my goodness, locked it up and then just had that tire wall, that stationary tire wall right next to the track.
Horrible place to lose it, and now Ezra's had to tow into pit lane. Surely will take the spare car, try to get back out and see what he can do from there.
Might need to take a spare driver as well, Joe.
Yeah, or maybe an aspirin, because that had to hurt. But Ian Roche really likes trying to make passes into the corkscrew, which, despite it being a heavy braking zone, is usually tough to overtake there. He seems to like it. Didn't quite get by, though, and now he goes a little bit wide coming off of Rainey. Chad Duncan almost capitalizes.
Yeah, and it was turn number 10, the previous lap that Ian Roche went off at. So now he's checked off turn number 9 as well as turn number 10, taking kind of that Pro 2 line as Mark Rondeau threatening here to try to take away third place a little bit deep into the corkscrew. That's going to cost him on the exit. You see Baccignone try to get to the car. Nice and inside there, but Rondeau is able to kind of carry the momentum down the hill here. So Doug Baccignone trying to take away what would be fourth from Mark Rondeau.
So yeah, almost looks like he was starting to get close to the back of Johnson, maybe panicked a little bit and braked a little bit harder on that right foot, and unfortunately it cost him, and it was indeed Heindel that got into the back of him. But nose doesn't show a whole lot of damage, at least from that replay.
Well, I think when the front right is hanging off of it, you got bigger problems than.
Well, no. I meant Heindel's nose.
Oh, okay. yes, okay. No, you're right. Heindel doesn't look too bad. Oh, no.
Sorry.
Yep, that was Robert Leclerc in the GT1 class, the 710 over there in turn number 3.
Oh, and the car is limping badly. That's going to be difficult to bring it back. I don't think he's going to be able to drive that one home, and he knows it. He takes a tow. That's a real shame. He was our biggest mover in the GT1 class up until that moment with 3 positions gained. Now that goes to Marc Rondeau, who is up 2 and onto the podium. Dustin Heindel, is there damage on the car? And if so, can he hold Ian Roche back? Ian seems to say no, because he's going to stick his nose in immediately down through turn 3. Dustin sees the writing on the wall and lets him go.
I just think that the first few hundred yards has set the tone for Ian Roche, because maybe he didn't qualify where he felt like he should have based off of his pace. He's already up 2 positions from having to fall back into the GT field, restart in the GT field, and now finds himself back in 5th place. I wonder how high he's going to get up there.
And, I mean, next up is going to be Will Castillo again as we go side by side in the corkscrew once more. Dustin Heindel gives plenty of space to Jad Duncan. Duncan does likewise on the second apex, and he doesn't make the pass, so Dustin holds on to P6.
The commitment through turn number 9 on the outside, it's pretty fun to watch as we're going to get this replay of exactly what happened between Del Toro and Rondeau. You're going to see Del Toro track out. Rondeau was there on the outside. Could Marc Rondeau have lifted maybe a little bit? But guess what? He's putting the power down to try to accelerate off of the corner. He had presented the car on corner entry. It's a tough pill to swallow, but sometimes you do need to leave room for others.
Yeah, had just a nose in around the outside, and there wasn't enough space for the both of them, unfortunately. BJ Fulton is still in P2. AJ Roper, having taken that lead away, has pulled a gap of about 1.1 seconds. Not gigantic by any stretch, but still enough that BJ is not within attacking distance.
A big difference between these 30-minute races and the 90-minute that we're in right now is going to be how the drivers settle into the groove, right? The sprint races are so quick and frantic that you're just attack, attack, attack all the time. But we're going to see these drivers have to settle in and just turn consistent laps. I think that's kind of the phase that we're getting into. Approaching 15 minutes in, they're going to have to settle in eventually.
And overtake lap traffic much more frequently, or at least more often over the course of the race, I should say. And that's the first one done, getting by John Mollmeyer. That held him up, and you can see how much BJ Fulton has gained on him. It's now down to 0.7 of a second.
Getting through traffic can definitely make or break you as a driver. Between these two, though, we were commenting about how, what was it, the top 6 or top 7 in the GTPs were all in that 111 bracket. So I don't think that there's a performance advantage per se, but if a driver can maybe clear these GT cars going into one section, that can certainly create a gap, just like what we're seeing. Fulton not getting by Rondeau going into the corkscrew.
And honestly, I think that was a wise decision. It's tough to try and break side by side up into that chicane. Oh, it's costly, though. Look at how much he is now lost. AJ Roper up to 2 seconds ahead of him, but at least he did not put himself in a compromising position.
I'll echo what you just said, because you're right, not compromised. The GT car was happy. He didn't have to worry about a prototype diving down the inside of him. And then even right after BJ Fulton passed him, it was Ezra Kelderman that kind of showed the same amount of respect. And just right there in the Andretti hairpin, you saw Rondeau try to think about closing the door. He saw a prototype there, and he's like, no, this is not the right thing to do. It goes both ways with that respect between the classes.
Absolutely. Like what we're seeing in this first trip through the field of GT1, still being led by Matt Steele. I know we haven't shown him a lot, but he's got about 6 seconds or a little more over Jeffrey Schulem, who is P2, and Ian Roche chasing on Will Castillo. They're going to be the latest to overtake Del Toro. Managed to sneak by, but it's not going to give an opportunity for Ian to finally pass the man that spun him at the start of this race. I'm pretty sure he would like to finally be ahead of him for good.
I think it will just be a matter of time. I know that the lap times are kind of affected a little bit by traffic right now, but just the best lap from Ian Roche, a 12.8 compared to a 14.1 from Castillo. It's just a matter of time for the opportunity to happen here for this number 5. Keep it on the racetrack and it'll happen.
Again, having to stay patient as we rode on board down through Rainy behind Doug Boccignone. Now, things getting very tight down to the pit wall as Schulem was trying to play a bit of defense to prevent Rondeau from having a chance to pass him. They're going to stay in line, these two fighting for fourth in the GTPs behind them. It started to heat up because of that interruption for P2 and the GT1s.
Let's see here if Ian can really keep the pressure on. You see the GT1 still a little bit tight there, as I think that was Jad Duncan trying to squeeze through it, and now that's actually opened the door. So Jeff Schulem is getting past from Mark Rondeau. Schulem tried to fight back there in turn number 5, but it seems like that gray number 11 is in second.
He's been steadily chipping away at those positions in this race. It's been a real marvel to see. I know we're only about 17 minutes into this, but the way he's been staying out of trouble and wise about his moves, to me, says that he's going to be one to watch. He might not have the pace of steel, but if he can keep himself out of harm's way, then he's got a good shot at this one.
Sometimes it's about surviving, and if there's only, call it X number of survivors in a 30-minute sprint race, how many survivors do you think there's going to be in a 90-minute endurance race? It's definitely going to be less. So yeah, the cleaner you can keep your car, the friendlier you are to everybody else. That increases your chances of having a clean car, but you got to make it to the end to have the best shot.
Jeffrey Schulem with another very aggressive move into the final hairpin there. Didn't work once again. Now he's having to play defense instead, as Doug's looking around the outside of the Andretti hairpin and just kicks up a little bit of dirt going too wide off of there. But Jeffrey looks like he is a little bit antsy to get this second place back.
Curious. Sometimes the draft will help out. Laguna's not too long of a straightaway track to really allow a car to pull you up alongside, but Ian Roche still has not found a way around Will Castillo. Oh, there's a little bit wide going in and through the corkscrew there from Will Castillo. Allows Roche to just kind of close it in on the back bumper. He's not close enough going into turn 11 here. He's actually slipped up a little bit through turn number 10, so hand the advantage back to the orange number 14. Oh, as I say that, he slips up.
Locked up his brakes big time through there. They're going to almost bang doors as they come down across the start-finish line, but the extra momentum for Ian puts him ahead, and he's punted again! He's put off by Will Castillo, who I think just got on the radio with a bit of an apology there. He might feel a bit sheepish after twice now sending Ian in the same corner.
I hear you. I know that Ian is probably extremely frustrated, and Will Castillo might have raised his hand, but Joe, I'm actually going to put this on the number 5 because he cleared Castillo, immediately took away the driving line, and then jumped on the brakes. Now, I don't know if Castillo missed his brake marker and that's why he's raising his hand, but it's a little difficult when somebody literally takes all the air off of the front of your car.
I've had that happen before. Oh, and he's going to lose it. Hopefully nobody gets into him. Yep, looks like he's going to be clear, but there was definite suspension damage on the car, and Ian now has to tow it back to get it to pit lane, not feeling safe to try and drive it home. But yeah, it's one thing that always has frustrated me when drivers kind of have that lane open and then they move over in the braking and almost kind of squeeze you off. So I agree with you on that. I think that may be a bit of what happened, and that means that actually, no, Will Castillo looks like he's also got an issue. He's in pit lane. Oh, he's got a black flag, and that may be for incident points already, and we're not even a third of the way through.
It seems to be a drive-through, so yeah, it is just straight up the black flag. Come and drive through. So, and you'll have to remind me here because I got to go through the info tab, how many more incidents he's got before he gets the next drive-through. So, yeah, he's just kind of on strict watch from Barney right now.
So 17 incidents is your first drive-through penalty. Now, we don't know if he got 17 exactly or if he went over, because it could have been with that being a car contact. But it's every 10 after 17. And then at 34, you actually get DQ'd. So, I mean, at this rate, he definitely has to change the trend and make sure and keep it cleaner for the rest of the race, because he's not making it to the end if he keeps this up.
No, and sometimes you just need maybe an over-the-top moment like that. You're very frustrated from the initial start as Doug still working on Jeff here. This is going to be a little tense going into turn number 6. Oh, Doug backs out of it at the last second. Jeff Shulam did leave enough room for 2 wide there at the apex, but Doug Bacchignon just didn't have the car presented up alongside far enough to really make that pass happen. I was just going to say, you're probably frustrated off of the initial start, and then you're extremely mad after that second wreck. And sometimes that pot boiling over is kind of what you need for that mental reset.
That makes sense to me, but I think maybe Jeffrey Shulam might need a little bit of a reset if he's not careful, because he's very feisty today with the battles he's been picking, kind of on the opposite end of the coin of what we were seeing for guys like Marc Rondeau, who seem to be kind of smooth sailing throughout, where Shulam is putting his nose in just about anywhere he can.
Definitely been a little bit more on the aggressive side of things there, so that's what's kept him in that 3rd place, holding off Doug Bacchignon as he goes wide, actually, in turn number 4. It is so tricky. I mentioned that this is quote-unquote old Laguna. Now, it's not vintage old Laguna, but it's not the new repaved Laguna, and this track is so low grip. It is just pushy, loose everywhere you go. The car doesn't want to turn on the front half, and it wants to turn too much on the back half. It's just the management game that the drivers are going to play all race long.
I wish it was the true old vintage Laguna Seca. The pre-'89 version that surpassed what is now kind of an infield section that they added to it, where it's been so long now we just kind of think of it as it is now, but it used to be just a wickedly fast track all around.
We're going to have more GTP cars coming up through the GT traffic here. I think I see Ezra Kelderman also coming by in that blue and yellow car. That's BJ Fulton, our 2nd place runner that just made his way through. So Ezra Kelderman is following BJ Fulton. He's just a little off sequence, being what is 1 lap down, but actually on pace with the leaders.
Exactly. It's got to be frustrating because that pace showing him right now, he should, this is the position he probably should be in. But he's got little hope because, as we said, there's no more full course yellows that they're going to be throwing. And I doubt he's going to be catching that front group if he's pretty even with them on pace. Now, he might overtake a few of the other cars that are having trouble, such as Will Castillo at the back. Obviously, Ian Roche, who it looks like actually may have ended his race. I'm not sure if we're going to get him back in it. This is getting a little interesting once again, and coming up for an attempt in turn 6 is not going to produce results, although it will scare Michael Johnson, who eventually sneaks through.
I'm still, oh, look at this late break. Oh my goodness, Doug is able to keep the car from going off the racetrack, and he actually finds himself in 3rd place as another overtake happens. This is Dylan Scott. He was able to work his way around Dustin Heindel here in the GTPs.
So Heindel's actually still up 2 from where he started, so he might be losing positions, but he's at a net gain, and he might get it right back here. That is going to be a cut course penalty for Dylan Scott. You can't pull the Zanardi move here in the sim, and he has to give the time back.
Gonna have to do the pass all over again, but it's Heindel that jumped over that apex curb there at turn number 10, really upset the car. So I think that Dylan Scott just immediately right back on that diffuser there of the number 13. Let's see, is he close enough to pull a real late braking move here into the Andretti hairpin? He thinks wiser of it, probably a little bit too far back there, but Heindel locks up. This is going to be the traction power down event.
It's easy to make mistakes at this track, and it seems like who makes the least mistakes might take home the trophy. Great undercut there from Dylan Scott to pull that one off. He timed it perfectly.
So just a half a lap later, he was able to remake the pass. So 2 passes done, and call it a lap and a half here. Let's see if the pressure from Heindel in the mirror will maybe force another mistake, or if Dylan will able to just kind of set off down the road right now. He's got about 14 seconds between him and Jad Duncan, who's up in 4th place.
it's a long ways to go to the next car. Either the pace just hasn't been as good for this half of the field, or they've been struggling with the errors I was just talking about. Here's your leader down in the GT1s, though, as Matt Steele allows Michael Johnson to go on by. He's got a gap of about 10 seconds over Mark Rondeau, so Matt Steele kind of sitting pretty currently.
Doing consistent laps out there, a 24.5 that last time by. Compare that to Mark Rondeau, who's got that 10-second lead over a 24.9, so is still outpacing the rest of the GT field right now. Rexy looking pretty good out in Monterey.
Absolutely. And coming up into the braking for the corkscrew, just tucks it in nicely, hits his marks, and is on his merry way down the hill. You heard Joey talk about over 100 feet. I believe it's something like 13 stories from the corkscrew down to turn 11.
I can tell you from the driver's seat, Joe, it is, you literally pick out the right tree, because there's a few of them, but there's one that kind of stands a little bit more prominent in terms of where the apex is and where you need to point the car, and you literally do not see down the corkscrew. You come up to the top of it, you point it at that tree, and you hope you come out the other side.
I had the chance to get to go and do the track walk earlier this year, and I can tell you, it's honestly scary even in the golf carts. We saw a few teams that looked like they might actually get those things tipped over as they tried to send them down at full tilt.
Let's see what this GSRC replay is. The number 14 car of Will Castillo. Oh, I think he actually jumped the corkscrew on the way down, which we didn't quite get to see there, and that really upset the car. These GTP cars at slow speed, they need a stable platform, don't they?
Yeah, that's for sure. They're not as good at those low speeds, very tightly sprung. And I gotta admit, Will did a very good job keeping that out of both walls and getting it back going. Now, he didn't have any traffic around, so that definitely helped him because he could kind of veer it across the track. But regardless, used what was available, and the car is still clean, and off he goes, continuing in 7th as we now watch Federico Del Toro. That is Jeffrey Schulem in front of him, who was on the attack a few laps ago and has since seemed to be a bit more on defense and is kind of leading positions.
I think that this is a good recovery drive from Federico here, because he was involved in that opening lap Andretti hairpin incident, and then, if I remember correctly, he kind of got pushed off the track a few more times after that. So being able to close it back in on Jeffrey Schulem, who has been battling it out with Bacchiglione for the last, call it 15 minutes or so, I think Federico might be punching his ticket, trying to get up to 4th here soon enough.
Let's see if he can. He's going to have to fight for it. If anything we've seen from Jeffrey is something to go by as his behavior for this race. And he hasn't done anything untoward that I've seen. It's just that he seems willing to fight for it. John Momeyer, in the meantime, was really bicycling the Porsche. And unfortunately, that sent him off the track. That looked like that was turn 10, I think.
Yeah, that was turn 10. You saw the little pit entrance on the driver's left side. It was hitting that big old sausage curb, bread box curb. They are giant at Laguna Seca. If you think that iRacing maybe modeled them wrong, no, they will literally rip off an entire front corner of a suspension. So, yeah, you got to stay off of those apex curves.
For sure. Now, one thing I am curious about, and we've been kind of chatting about behind the scenes, is the pit stops, because theoretically, the GT3s are within the window. We don't anticipate many of them trying to stop now, although some could. The question mark for us is, how far can the GTPs go? Since, from what I understood, I thought it was around 45 minutes, maybe even less. So I kind of want to know, is anybody able to make it on a single stop today?
I'm going to get a little bit nerdy, and if they can make it on a single stop, in iRacing, the lighter you run the car on fuel, the faster it gets, especially at Laguna Seca. The smaller track, the more mechanical grip track, it just gets faster and faster and faster, just like a go-kart. I would run this first tank all the way completely dry, as far as you can go. And remember, we also had the opening yellow flag, which should theoretically extend this first stint. And so that way, if you can make it on one stop, you're only having to fill up, call it 90% or 80% or whatever you need to make it to the checkered flag, but don't overfill it where you've got extra weight in the car. The key is keeping the car as light as possible.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'd forgotten that the caution kind of extends that pit window as well. So that should help them tremendously in trying to get this done in one stop. Oh, boy, around the outside of Rainy Curve was always going to be a bad idea. And thankfully, BJ Fulton saw that and backed out of it.
Multi-class traffic is always going to be busy. There goes Ezra Kelderman in that blue and yellow GTP as well. But Federico Del Toro closing it in ever so slightly on Schulem. Let's check those last lap times. Actually, Schulem was able to gap it out about 3/10 that previous lap. So what was maybe half a second now back up to about 3/4 of a second.
With the two classes so jumbled up, I imagine it's going to be a real ebb and flow and difficult to be consistent on those lap times. As we watch Dylan Scott, who's currently sitting in 5th and a little bit in no man's land. He's gotten by Dustin Heindel and has left him behind by about 3.5 seconds, but he's got 23 seconds to make up to Chad Duncan. Just a monstrous hill to overcome if he wants to get to only 4th, let alone trying to get up to a podium.
I want to give a lot of credit to BJ Fulton up in 2nd place, because I look at the gap. It actually just extended maybe a little bit, getting held up by a GT car, but it was hovering right there about 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, and he's just done a terrific job to hang on to the back of our leader right here, AJ Roper, because he's not, call it 10 seconds, 15 seconds, where AJ doesn't have to worry about getting into the pits, or he doesn't have to worry about strategy. AJ Roper still is on notice out here. He has to nail the pit stop. He has to nail the pit strategy, because BJ Fulton is keeping him honest.
Well, and with you being our racing driver, why don't you talk us through a lap here with our leader? Tell us what's going right here.
Coming up here to turn number 5, fast corner. Watch the GT car. It's all about the exit here. Sliding a little wide. Oh, got tripped up a little there. We talked about this corner. Turn 6, high speed, high commitment. Throw it in. Avoid the apex curb. Nice job. Corkscrew already coming up. Hit the brake marker. Get the car to the right-hand side. It's kind of in the middle of the track there, but that's okay. Get down through the exit, and now it's all about monitoring the front end grip that you've got. A little bit of throttle modulation through turn number 10. Really get it tucked into the apex there with the camber, and then it's the straight line braking event. Turn number 11. Make sure not to overdo it. You're able to abuse the apex and the exit curbs there in that final turn, and that comes and brings you to the start and finish line. And since we kind of jumped in halfway, we'll continue down through turn number 2 here. All downhill in this braking zone, so a little bit further and longer than what you think. And then the corner just seems to last forever. It's all about putting the power down. Then this tricky turn number 3 and turn number 4, it's all about the mechanical grip. So the wider you make that apex radius, the faster you can roll it through. And that's pretty much a very, very fast lap in a GTP car around here.
A 1:12.6 roughly that last time by for the 07 car. And that's with traffic that he was navigating for much of the time. So nice stuff. It's now up to about 4.7 seconds over BJ Fulton. He's got this one well managed, but there's still 55 minutes left to go. A lot of racing yet to be completed, and so much can happen in that time that this could come undone. He's got to keep his wits about him if he wants to come home with this victory. Now, you know, we're talking about Doug Bacchignone trying to overtake Schulem for so long. I wonder if Doug might actually catch up to Rondeau. Has he been quicker? Because it's only 3 seconds apart right now.
I feel that the traffic, when the GTPs meet up with the GT3s, they can kind of stumble over themselves. So it's not only the GTPs that can lose time, but it can also be these GT3 cars. And The streak goes both ways, right? If you leave the door open, it's going to cost you lap time, but Doug Boccignone has kept up the pace. 23.9. Mark Rondeau last lap time was a 25.6. Let's see what it is this time by. I think that's a little bit more reflective for Mark Rondeau. A 24.1 compared to a 24.2 from Doug Boccignone. So, Joe, to your point, yes, the gap is closing, but I think it's a little bit more relative now.
Yeah, that seems more competitive between them. And Mark maybe was just getting the wrong end of the stick of that traffic because, yeah, he was losing almost 2 seconds per lap for a while there. And now Doug is going to have to chase him on his own merits since it doesn't look like they've got traffic for a little bit. Dylan Scott's going to be the next one through and probably won't catch them until the end of this lap. Oh, Federico Del Toro has gotten it down to about half a second from Jeffrey Shulam. He's also been chipping away at this for some time. Meanwhile, Will Castillo is pitting in. So I'm not sure if this is a scheduled stop. Yeah, it looks like it is. He's taking tires.
And Will is, I believe, 1 lap down, or maybe in potential of going 2 laps down because of the pit stop. But maybe the first to show that kind of strategy card. This has been a good battle between Shulam and Federico Del Toro. Shulam has definitely been more aggressive on the defense, and you see the GTP car even struggling to get by that number 371. I've also noticed maybe a little bit of front-end nose damage on the front of this silver number 27 of Federico, so maybe once those pit stops happen, he can kind of get that front end fixed up, have that car that he needs to overtake Shulam.
Yeah, I would think that if the splitter is damaged, that's going to make life difficult around a track like this where you need that front to really turn in a lot of places. Coming up through turn 3, he's caught up to him. Some of that because of the traffic, trying to get by Shulam at the end of last lap. Is he going to be under threat here as they come out of turn 4? No, much better exit for the 371, and they're going to get separated, or will they? Whoa, that was late from Dustin Heindel.
That was very late from the GTPs, but thankfully he did not drift out into the second lane, and also saw it coming, so no harm, no foul. They probably were kind of talking about that one after the race, say, hey, didn't need to dive up the inside of turn number 5, but then Heindel's going to be like, hey, nobody died, right? We're all here.
Any landing you can walk away from, but Del Toro is glued to the back of Jeffrey Shulam and has been for some time. Traffic keeps interrupting it briefly, but he finds his way right back up to that blue and multicolored machine onto the main straight. Shulam does seem to do a pretty good job with these corner exits. He really seems to pull away just a little bit.
When we talk about racing, the corner exit, usually, most of the time, is the most important. There are a few exceptions, but if you can launch your car out of the corner, it's just a way to escape the potential passing attempt at the end of the straightaway from anybody behind you. So yeah, if you can call it nail the apex and nail the exit, you can be one of the most frustrating drivers ever to pass on the track.
Which is kind of what Jeffrey's been doing, it seems. Because despite the speed that we're seeing out of Federico, he can't really get himself into the right position. Leclerc is a couple laps down from the lead right now, but carrying on. We saw him have his issue where he had to take a tow back to pit lane. He's still about a minute away from John Momeyer, so depending on if his pace is significantly faster, he could maybe catch up to 6.
And AJ Roper just made contact with Federico Del Toro in the corkscrew. So what was a 5-second gap between Roper and Fulton is now down to 3/4 of a second. Trying to go around the outside of Shulam. Shulam's going to spin. And all of a sudden, BJ Fulton has got to avoid. So that's going to open up the gap once again. But it was getting pretty close up at the front.
Said it early, you really can't count anything out in this race, and both AJ and BJ have now discovered that. Amazing, AJ got away with that little bit of contact, and now Fulton having to go full evasive maneuvers to keep from running into his fellow competitor, Ezra Kelderman, with a pit stop that should take him to the finish of this race. So he'll top up with fuel, take the tires, and be on his merry way. But again, a full lap down from the next car ahead, Dustin Heindel. So not really looking at anything other than attrition helping him at this stage.
I want to open up the notepad of strategy options right now because you're really close to that halfway point, right? And if these GTP cars are all coming in right now because they're out of fuel, they cannot make it to the end on this stop alone. They will have to come back in. I see our leader, AJ Roper, staying out on the racetrack, but I want to say that even if they can make it to 45 minutes, that might not be enough to make it completely to the end. Remember, we had that yellow flag. That eats up the fuel consumption. There's the contact between our leader, AJ Roper, and Federico Del Toro. That's what brought this lead battle in so close.
It's still only about 2 seconds apart right now, so a little bit more of a buffer for AJ, but still, I don't think enough to really feel completely comfortable. And then here is the other incident. Did he actually make contact with Schulem there?
I think so. Typically with the GT car, you've got all the weight on the front right of the car. So if it gets any more weight, aka running into a car, it's just going to pivot off of that axis.
John Momeyer seems to have had a problem coming out of turn 6. I'm not sure if the car is damaged, but he's trying to limp back as we watch AJ Roper come down out of the corkscrew. It's still actually now up to 3 seconds, so he continues to pull away from BJ.
Oh, there's a lockup. Again, AJ Roper really pushing the limits of kind of the pace that he's doing out there. I think that he's really feeling the pressure from BJ Fulton behind him. That last lap time from our leader, 1:14.6. Second place, a 1:14.2.
So here's what happened to Momeyer. And yeah, just loaded up the right side. Too much grip there, and the car wanted to rotate more than he intended. Apparently also Will Castillo nearly had an accident right in front of AJ Roper, but thankfully evacuated the track before the leader got to him.
Joe, it was not an almost incident. I mean, he full-on locked it up in the corkscrew and went head-on into the tire wall right in front of AJ Roper. But if you notice, BJ Fulton only a half a second back once again from our leader, and that was because of another mistake from that orange 07. He locked it up in turn number 3 this lap, missed the apex, thankfully was able to keep it on the racetrack, but once again, that 82 right in the mirror.
Things getting a little tight there as he locks it up again. That's the third time we've seen that happen. AJ Roper gives up the lead for the first time in this race since the start. BJ Fulton is back up to the top spot ahead of AJ, and it seems whatever setup that Roper's got on that one, the braking setup is a little bit wonky for him.
It could be overheating the front tires, right? Think about it if the setup has too much understeer in it, right? And you're just abusing those front tires. Well, the longer you run them, the hotter they're going to get. You also need those front tires for braking. This is just one potential outcome of if you wear those front tires a little bit too much and then you're trying to ask too much out of the car.
One driver that is wishing that wasn't over so quickly is Michael Johnson. I was kind of wondering, with him being 14 seconds back from these two, if they start battling a lot at the end of the race, if he can maybe start to regain some of the time he's lost. Now I think that's a little bit out of the equation unless AJ comes right back at the number 82. So we're watching Doug he's cut it down. It was 3 seconds before. It's down to about 1.7, although it looks like he maybe had a poor exit coming out of turn 6 and is now going to lose some of that time he made up to Mark Rondeau.
And to your point from a few minutes ago, he is closing it in on that grade 11. It's just kind of one lap is a little bit good, the next lap is really good. Maybe Mark makes a mistake and then Doug makes a mistake. So it really is just the ebb and flow of chipping away at it. I think the green and blue 59 a little bit faster, but he's just got to keep up. Still got 44 minutes left. This is an endurance race, right? It's not a sprint race. Sometimes it's going to take you a little bit longer to get this pass done.
What's wild about this is both of them had to visit pit lane at the start for getting caught up in that incident with Ian Roche coming through the opening hairpin. And yet they're looking to try and battle for second place out there, at least as things stand right now. And this is second place in the GTPs. AJ's not letting BJ get away very quickly. He's only about a second behind, so I don't think this one's over quite yet.
Do either of them come down pit road? No, neither leader comes down pit road yet. I think that this is the wise thing to do, is that if the car can make it well past halfway, do it. Burn all the fuel out of it you can, and then only put the minimum amount of fuel in that you need to make it to the end of the race. So I expect them to be coming probably in the next few laps, but it's still curious. I wonder if one of them has stretched it further than the others.
Yeah, that could make a difference. Have that slightly shorter of a pit stop could help you down the line. Michael Johnson in third, as I said before, that has not changed. Still about 14 seconds behind them. So he needs something dramatic to become a factor in a battle for the win. Otherwise, he's looking at a bit of a lonely podium. It's 8 seconds back to Jad Duncan behind him.
You got to keep swimming, right? You never know what can happen. We saw just chaos in the first minute, call it first 30 seconds of this race, and we still got 43 minutes remaining. I know we're past halfway, and sometimes it can be a little bit of a mental slog with these longer events, but you never know what can happen. You have to keep racing.
Absolutely. And this won't be the last one if I believe it's like they typically do, where usually they have 2 endurance races in the course of a season. I'll double check on that in a bit here. But so this is going to be good practice for the next time out as well. Dustin Heindel. Now, is that for position? Yes, it is. Ezra Kelderman is actually ahead of him now. And I think, yeah, both of them have stopped is what I'm seeing. So it looks like this is legitimate. Ezra has caught and passed the 13.
I think the one caveat here is that Ezra is still a lap down, and he's a little bit off sequence. Actually, no, Joe, I'm just confused over here. You know, I think that Heindel has maybe just fallen down maybe a little, and Ezra has had a terrific job keeping it consistent, because that last lap time, a 1:12.6, it's actually faster than our front 3.
Wow. Man, what could have been for that number 10? But yeah, that was definitely for position between himself and Heindel. Up to P6. Does have a lap to go to get to Dylan Scott and get into the top 5. So that's maybe a little bit too much to hope for at this stage, unless Heindel has an accident. Doug is in the pits taking tires, while it looks like our leader, Matt Steele, has pitted, so that's going to cycle him backwards. Mark Rondeau inherits the lead, at least temporarily.
As well as Jeff Shulam, as well, and Federico Del Toro as well. They all kind of jumped Matt Steele, but once the pit stop cycles all go through, Matt Steele will resume the lead. We watched Doug in the green and blue, number 59, rejoin the racetrack as well, and I think this is kind of the pit stop window. Just don't make any mistakes on pit road.
John Momeyer, he sits in 6th right now. He's a lap down from the leader in class. He's about a minute behind Doug Baccignone, but as we just saw, Doug pitted and Momeyer has not. So that is not really accurate out there. They're off strategy compared to one another. We should see Momeyer in within the next 20 minutes or so, most likely, or right now.
And we're actually having a strategy card being played right now, Joe. AJ Roper in pit lane, BJ Fulton staying out on the racetrack. And AJ had closed it in to call it maybe 1 or 2 car lengths from right behind our leader. He did exactly what he needed to do. Now we're going to see if he can pull this undercut with the fresh tires on the outlap.
Fresh tires, and will he get a clearer track as well? That's the thing. If he can hit a period of track that does not have traffic, and BJ or AJ does wind up getting stuck in it, then that's going to help out BJ tremendously here. So the Club West driver heading up the hill towards turn 6 and actually extending that gap over Michael Johnson now up to 16 seconds behind him. Let's see if he responds. AJ still taking his service. Should be done pretty soon here, or else it's going to be a long stop. It is a long stop for AJ Roper. Oh, no.
Too long.
Wow. It is about 6 seconds longer than his rivals. 8 seconds longer, actually.
I also wonder, because remember, Kelderman was not on the lead lap per se. I just wonder if this is what a full tank of fuel is in the GTP cars. You see BJ Fulton almost couldn't put an entire lap on AJ Roper. He stays out again. It'll be very interesting. The tire now goes in favor of that orange 07.
Yeah, and that is going to be important around here, I have to imagine. Although it's not the hottest track we've ever seen, especially for Laguna Seca, only about 80 Fahrenheit right now. So there you see about 27 Celsius for the metric volts, and just a little bit of wind, but I don't think that's enough to really bother these drivers too much. That's definitely less wind than I've seen here in real life before.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it can get quite windy out there on top of the hill in Monterey. Let's see if AJ Roper is going to be coming into... I'm sorry, AJ has already hit pit lane. I've got my eye on BJ Fulton as AJ kind of drifts off the track just a touch there in turn number 10. And once again, our leader stays out on the racetrack.
Interesting stuff. He's going to hit traffic again. Cleric is pulling off to the side, letting him through. Although he just got a spot off of John Momar. Yeah, John just pitted, so Robert now moves up into P6 thanks to that one. Although I think Robert still owes us a pit stop because he pitted about 27 laps ago, it looks like. I don't think that's within the window. Matt Steele has already pitted, but we need stops from Rondeau, Del Toro, and Shulam. We're expecting the 4-car to cycle back into the lead easily.
There's a little bit of a peculiar situation that Matt Steele has kind of stumbled himself into. Remember, we've talked about the 371 of Jeff Shulam being rather difficult to pass, right? He nails those apexes and exits and makes it very, very difficult to get around. However, he is on the end of his tire life cycle while Matt Steele has got some freshies underneath him, and we know how fast Matt has been. We know how difficult Jeffrey is to pass. It's about to be lined up, only 1 second away between these two cars.
He's got his wits about him, because I think this could get a little dicey if he tries to force the issue here coming up to Shulam, because there's no guarantees that Shulam, even though he probably has figured out that he's on a different strategy than him, but he is not obligated to just hop out of the way of that bright green machine. So what happens when he catches up to him? About 36 minutes left on the clock. Definitely still time that Jeff could stay out and extend this run.
One very nice part is Jeff was on it that last lap. His fastest lap of the race, a 23.685. So the number 371 has found some pace as the car is getting lighter and lighter on fuel. Just Matt Steele is even faster here, hunting him down. Man,
this fuel economy for BJ Fulton also is pretty good.
Right?
We're down 35 minutes left to go. They had that caution flag to help extend it. This is now a 55-minute stint. He's been running a pretty fast pace because you think about how hard he was battling with Roper. So this is impressive what he's been able to do.
I completely agree. It makes me wonder, did the other cars... Oh my goodness, wow. Did you see those GT cars go through the Matt Steele? And remember, Matt's won how many races? Like 4 or 5 in a row, so he's trying to keep that streak going. He's just trying to survive out there as the rest of his field has to complete the pit stop cycle. But to the point about the fuel, I really do wonder how far he can stretch it, or if others even put 100% fuel in to start this race. Did they say, hey, you know what, 75% gets me to the end? a little bit of an alternate strategy. I don't know.
Yeah, I've never been totally sure about that, starting with a little less fuel, because from what I've understood, you lose more time trying to refuel, adding the extra
Hmm.
fuel in. But I haven't done or seen any actual studies that someone tries to prove it. It's just the norm is that you start with a full tank and go as far as you can go. So we'll see. I'm very curious if anybody out there listening has done tests to see is that the right way, or is there some trick that everybody's been missing?
Well, there is the alternate strategy, Joe. So you mentioned fill it all the way up at the beginning with a full tank of fuel. What I like to do is I'll completely forget to put in my race setup and I'll leave my qualifying setup in. So I'll go out there only on like 2 gallons of fuel on my race setup. That's usually the winning way to go.
I don't think I'm going to take your advice on that one, but Michael Johnson has decided it's time for him to refuel. Looks like he put enough in at the start of this race. Also getting pretty good mileage out there, although not running quite the same pace that BJ Fulton was doing, who carries on yet one more lap. Dylan Scott will do the same. Okay, so Dylan Scott also is going to go long, and does Jad Duncan out there in P2. So we got 3 drivers that are sippers.
I guess I need to be paying attention more to AJ Roper's lap time as Fulton stays out again. I was going to say that AJ Roper that last time by was in the 12s. He was a little bit faster than BJ Fulton. He just got held up a little bit that previous lap. Comparing them this time by, looks like BJ Fulton was about a half a second to the good. But to the point about the tires, right? AJ Roper should be able to use these tires a little bit more. And also Fulton might get held up by Michael Johnson. No, Michael's going to play nice, let the leader on through.
There's literally no reason to try and save the set of tires. You can take the tires as you're refueling, and you don't lose any time for doing so. There's no limit to tire sets out here. So plop on the fresh rubber and then take off and push as hard as you can on them and use it up. And AJ Roper's been trying to do that. Like you said, it's just, and he went deep into the corkscrew. That's not going to help again. He needs perfect laps from here to try and do what he can to overtake BJ.
How many times have we seen that now out of AJ Roper? It seems to be the one caveat of his performance is that maybe he oversteps the limit in the brake zones that little bit. And it's tough. You want to gain the speed. You see the car, you see the black box, the relative time, but you also need to keep it within the limits. And sometimes driving slower, you'll actually go faster.
Yeah, I find when I'm pushing that hard, I usually have worse laps. Just get into that rhythm for sure helps a bunch. You saw BJ Fulton on screen, finally pitting in, and Jad Duncan will follow. That's going to be everybody now, having done their pit stops. I think Dylan Scott is just finishing his up. So now and Jad Duncan, unfortunately, has become our first victim that we've seen that didn't quite make the final hairpin in pit lane.
It is very sharp. I had mentioned it's not that difficult because it's about the same radius, but it is quite sharp if you go too fast into that pit lane entry. I'm watching BJ Fulton. So AJ Roper was stopped stationary for 42.4 seconds. BJ Fulton already on the move, 32.5.
Wow. He's gone so much farther, so probably has a more accurate reading and clearly was indeed saving some fuel if he hasn't short fueled it on this one and jumps him by 10 seconds.
I also wonder, 10 seconds. I wonder if AJ Roper just filled it up versus filling up how much he needed to make it to the end.
Yep. Well, and remember what I said at the start. Those who did not do their homework, they're going to be at a disadvantage. So that's one of those things, knowing your strategy. If you save those 10 seconds, you didn't need that fuel. Every second that you're not moving on track, your competitor is out there pounding the pavement.
We were talking about this battle, a handful of laps ago. Was Matt Steele, the fastest GT3 car on the track, your pole sitter, your championship leader, going to be able to get around Jeffrey Schulam, the most difficult driver to pass in today's 90-minute enduro? It seems like this green number 4 can't find a way around.
Yeah, his lap is a little bit slower, not massively. So it's holding him up, but he built such a buffer back to Rondeau. I think he should be okay unless he really is held behind for a long, long time here. And like we said, they've got maybe about 10 more minutes now at most before every of our GT1 cars should have to come in and take fuel and tires. But for now, Matt Steele is just a little plugged up behind the blue number 371. We watch from on board as he gets a little bit closer here. We still need a pit stop from Schulam, obviously, but also Del Toro and Rondeau. Everybody else has taken their scheduled stop in the GT1s.
I want to reiterate what you said, that Matt Steele, he's doing a terrific job because he had, I think, a 15-second gap over Rondeau before they came in. So it could be a situation that Matt Steele is playing it easy right now. He knows that Schulam's going to be a difficult customer to pass, and there's no need to really push the issue. Mark Rondeau's last lap time, a 24.2. Matt Steele's last lap time, a 24.0. So even though he's behind Schulam, he's actually still making time on that second place car.
Interesting. And he did have a little bit of a look into turn 3, but wasn't able to get himself any overlap into the corner as we check in on our leader, BJ Fulton, 14.5 seconds ahead of AJ Roper. Just wanted to talk about the stats of Steele, because you had talked about how much of a streak he's on. He actually has not lost a race he has attended this season. He wasn't there for the first round, but the last 4 he has won. So this is going to be win number 5 in a row if he does back it up.
When I look at how he has driven the season in comparison to his competitors, it just seems like he's able to keep the car a little bit cleaner, a little bit more consistent. Yes, certainly he's had the speed to be up front, but he's also the car that is finishing all these races.
As we watch Mark Rondeau come out of the corner, he is leading the race, but again, he owes us a pit stop, so we'll see him probably in sooner rather than later. Federico Del Toro well behind him. It's Doug Baccignoni. Now, this is the curious thing, because Doug was chasing him, remember? And we wondered if he could maybe overtake him. I wonder if this is a strategy call from the 59, try and do it through the pit stops. And is Mark not being wise to it? Is he being caught? Because I haven't really watched the timing between them to be able to tell.
100%. That is something that has completely slipped through my fingers in terms of the strategy. Yeah, Doug Baccignoni is good to the end, and he only has a 7.5-second gap between himself and the will-be leader once the pit stop cycles are done. Mark Rondeau was about 10 to 15 seconds of a gap. So I do think, to your point, Doug Baccignoni has pulled an excellent strategy card. The only thing that could potentially stop this is if those GT cars that have stayed out only have to take a very, very, very small amount of fuel.
This has been a long time coming, and it was a decisive move. Again, with a wise head on the shoulders of Matt Steele. He didn't make any sort of half-hearted attempt at it. He sent it in, got it to the apex first, and he was by Schulam in one corner with ease.
Since we rode along with the GTPs earlier, let's go ahead and do it with the GT1 class. This Porsche 911 GT3 machine. This is turn number 3. So tricky, and it's all about that opening the apex radius. Same thing with turn number 4 right there. Turn number 5, you actually get to use the track a little bit. Look, there's a little bit of camber right here, so just dig the car in at the apex. Let it drift all the way out to that exit curb, and then this tricky, fast, high commitment turn 6. Nail the turn in, avoid the curb, and put your foot flat to the floor here. Pick out the brake marker. You got a little bit of time to think about it and position the car far driver's right. Once again, kind of a little bit more in the middle of the racetrack. down through the corkscrew. Now monitor the front end grip, modulate the throttle, use your right foot to help turn the car as you continue downhill into turn number 10. Use the camber on the racetrack, use all of that exit curb, look at the brake marker, get it all the way stopped, put the nose into the racetrack, and stand on the gas. And these GT3 cars, you got a little bit more of some time to kind of wiggle the fingers, wiggle the toes, take a deep breath down the front straightaway here and into turn number 2. Pick your brake marker, stand on it, really make sure you get the nose tucked into both of those apexes, put the power down, and the lap in the GT cars a little bit more calm than in the prototypes.
Yep, just about 12 seconds or so slower per lap from what we've seen than these GTPs. Definitely don't have the downforce grip that they have, although there's quite a few aero bits on these GT3 cars. So the driver who we believe will be our leader, and in fact, it looks like we've since had Federico Del Toro take his pit stop. So Matt moves up into P2 now, and we wait for Rondeau to take a stop. And Bacchignone currently about, looks like I'm seeing maybe about 28 to 30 seconds behind Rondeau. So this is, oh, and Rondeau is in now. Okay, so we'll get the answer to our question.
Yep, you saw him come down pit lane there, so he is stopped right now, taking fuel. Doug Bacchignone's stop was a 21.9 second stationary. Marc Rondeau, 19.4 seconds. He is already moving as the 59 is out onto the front straightaway. This is actually going to be pretty close with the rejoin.
All right, it's a shorter distance, but slower down on the inside for that pit exit lane for Marc Rondeau. And Bacchignone has to allow the GTP of Jad Duncan by. It was close, but unfortunately for Doug, not close enough. He comes out at about 3 seconds behind the 11. 22 minutes left on the clock as Schulem also takes a stop finally. I thought Schulem already had a stop, but maybe I'm just misremembering. But 22 minutes left on the clock. I feel like this is enough time for Doug to try and chase down the 11 for P2.
Agreed. Plenty of time to do it. I think what really skewed our information on that undercut there is look at the gap between Rondeau and Steele. I mean, that evaporated. That was 10 plus seconds when the pit stop cycle started, and now it is all the way down to 3.5. Whether that was Matt being very generous with Schulem or not, I don't know, but that gap has also shrunk.
Yeah, I'm looking at his lap times, and looks pretty consistent with what he was doing when he was on his own before he took his pit stop. So it doesn't look like he should have been held up. Granted, I say that, you kept mentioning the tires. Maybe he should have been faster in that time.
And you know, I got to look at all the pieces of information that are in front of us, right? Matt Steele, his pit stop, 28.4 seconds. Marc Rondeau, 19.4 seconds. So there's a 9-second difference right there. So yeah, that Matt Steele was able to continue to go faster, just Rondeau had a much, much shorter stop.
That's what cut it down. So maybe Matt Steele not as familiar with the pit stops as some of these other drivers. Rondeau, Bacchignone have both been veterans of this series, so they've done these endurance races and kind of know what to expect on there. Maybe Matt has not quite yet. So he comes up the hill. He's still got those 4 seconds over Rondeau. So as long as he's got the pace on him, he'll be okay. That said, Doug has cut it down by 0.8 of a second already. He's a-coming.
You're right. I think Steele is safe, right? Especially now that the cycles are done. As long as he's able to do his driving thing, I think he's safe out front. It's definitely going to be Marc versus Doug on who will finish in P2. Now, Robert Leclerc back here is also right on the back of John Momeyer, that kind of multicolored art card directly in front. And this is for the 6th place position.
Yeah, so this is one of the lower spots. Oh, Momeyer goes a little deep, but seeing the blue flags being waved with our leader coming through, Robert is very polite and gave up some time on his battle.
see if Momeyer kind of does the same thing, or if Robert's just going to be a little bit taken advantage of with the leader going through. I think that Matt Steele didn't actually get the best run out of turn number 5, so all 3 Porsches just kind of lined up nose to tail up and through turn number 5. I do think that Matt Steele is being very, very smart about how he's going about passing these cars.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I think that's what's made a big difference in his run today. Maybe not with the qualifying speed that some of the other drivers had, but he's certainly got good racecraft and race pace. He's up 3 from where he started and looking at a potential P2 finish, but that depends on if he can keep Doug Bacchignone from gunning him down. 1.7 seconds now and continuing to close.
Yeah, look at Robert Leclerc, though, take advantage. He got by John Momeyer in that turn number 11 there, was able to kind of follow Matt Steele through. The door was open. Robert in that 710 just kind of followed it through. And to your point, yeah, I'm watching that second and third place. Doug, last time by, a 23.2. Marc Rondeau, a 23.5.
We might still get an interesting finish here. Doug is making this one look like it's going to get spicy right at the end. Momeyer having a bit of a moment there in the foreground, kicking up dust off of turn 4 as Leclerc tries to run away from him now that he's got into that 6th position. Unfortunately, it's a lap behind Jeff Schulem, who's next one up the road in 5th spot. Boy, using every inch of the track. Marc Rondeau looks like maybe he's hustling the car now. Oh, and he's trying to lap Momeyer. Makes a really late move, but it's clean. Just looked like it was a bit scary.
And then you see Momeyer have to deal with a GTP, a prototype as well, going down after the corkscrew there. So Marc Rondeau trying to get through the traffic without being held up. And I look at that Doug Bacchignone as Rondeau is able to close the door in front of the prototype, not get held up. It definitely cost Doug, though. The gap has increased now to almost 3.5 seconds.
So it was getting close for a while, and then it seems like Doug was scuppered. Again, it's not over. Still 17 minutes left on the clock to try and rebound on that one. Rondeau having a bit of a bad time with traffic this lap, that is for sure. Look at that. Just relentless in there as Ezra Kelderman goes by. Ezra is actually getting close to Dylan Scott, if I'm seeing this right. So Ezra might get another position.
Yeah, it certainly looks like Kelderman is kind of the redemption drive of the race for sure. Now, I believe that's BJ Fulton, the prototype directly in front of him. They're coming up to Matt Steele here. Here they navigate the GT1 leader. Fulton a little bit of a lockup. Kelderman's just going to kind of follow him through. But to your point, Kelderman is closing it in on Dylan Scott, only about 3.8 seconds back. And at this pace, with those lap times, he will meet him before the checker flag.
Let's try not to interrupt Matt Steele. Our GT1 leader finds a nice spot to slide through the inside at the final hairpin. And he dashes off forward. But Matt Steele with about 4.7 seconds over Rondeau. He's been extending that as best he can since the pit stops. Let's see, lost time being in there longer. Doug, wow. You said it was 3.5 or something like that. He's already got it down to 2.5.
Definitely the faster car. It's just got to get the opportunity there. And as we were watching Ezra Kelderman there for a few corners and switching up to BJ Fulton, our leader, I think Kelderman, definitely a story of what if, his fastest lap time, a 12.0. That's faster than AJ Roper. The only faster car is our leader, BJ Fulton.
Just an excellent job done by this 82. He started on pole. He lost it early on and had to watch the lead slip away from him. Didn't seem to panic, and once he got back up, went on the attack and eventually got that lead away and had a good pit stop, and now it looks like he's sitting pretty with a quarter of an hour left to go. Checking back in with Doug. Holy cow, it's down to 0.8 of a second. I think the traffic may have once again just gone awry for the 11. Mark Rondeau has not been getting it right. Oh, and I don't know if that was a send or not, but Doug managing to overtake Leclerc to put him another lap down, but just about also had a pass on Rondeau in the same process.
It was a bit of an assertive move by Bacchiglione in the final turn, and then goes full defensive in the Andretti hairpin, which kind of confuses me a little bit. Now he's got to deal with Michael Johnson. Does he close the door? No, he realized the prototype's just going to beat him to turn number 3 there, so no point in trying to get held up there. But to the point of dive bombing Leclerc in turn number 11, that car is a lap down. Doug is trying to get by for second place. He's a man on a mission. He does not want to be held up, and he says, you know what? This is my playground right now. You're going to have to wait to play on.
And this is quite literally Doug's playground. He's from the Northern California area. I understand that he's got a lot of real-world experience at this track. So this kind of makes sense why we're seeing him come alive. He's not a slow driver, but this is, I think, one of the strongest performances we've ever seen from him.
I like that you bring up that he's got real-world experience. Now, that might not transfer all the time into the sim, but it does transfer in bits and pieces of information. You know going into turn 11 that you can focus on the brake marker, or that it dips down at the apex, or you know the nuances of the Andretti hairpin and how it compresses there at apex, and you can rely on the grip after having to go so far downhill on the brake. So, to your point, real-world knowledge can definitely come in handy.
Still at about a second back, so the traffic hasn't all gone his way. Rondeau keeps himself at arm's length, at least for the time being. The laps here, as we mentioned, are quite short, though. So even though we've got these 12 minutes left, that's going to be probably another 10 laps, or maybe just a little bit less than that these drivers are able to do before this thing is over. And that's not taking into account, depending on when, of course, they get caught by the leaders, because it is the GTPs that will determine when that white flag comes out.
Looking at the lap count, you're right. It should be, call it 70, maybe even approaching 75 laps in a 90-minute race. I think that's a testament to the consistency that these drivers have done, as well as just keeping the focus. I'm looking throughout our prototypes, and we've got 4 cars still on the lead lap battling it out. And even if you're not on the lead lap, like Ezra Kelderman isn't right here, he's right on the back of Dylan Scott for a 5th place battle.
Yeah, I'm impressed. We expected there to be fewer cars on the lead lap by the end of this one, but there was some good competition up at the front that we've managed to have more than we anticipated. And we've been watching Ezra Kelderman in the meantime. He's cut it down to about half a second on Dylan Scott. You said it earlier, this is kind of an if, not, or when, not if.
Let's see, does he make a lunge into 11? No, just not quite close enough. The other point about Kelderman is that you don't have this redemption drive or comeback drive if you make bad decisions either. So, yeah, we got 11 minutes left. The time is running out, but I also think that Ezra realizes he does have a little bit more pace. Just get up there a little bit closer and the opportunity will present itself.
Coming up through the infield section. It's sometimes a little easier to defend at a track like this as long as you don't make those mistakes. Can Dylan do that and hold back a car that at times has been our fastest driver out there, Ezra Kelderman, but just unfortunately got caught out with some bad braking in the final corner early in the race, destroyed the car, hopped in, took his spare car, got back out, but was already a lap down from the leaders and has just been trying to minimize the damage to his points since then. Let's check out Mark Rondeau, because you see behind him, that is Doug Bacchiglione once again.
Just already closed it up and aggressive on the brakes going into turn number 2. Can he transfer that into the corner exit? I think that Doug has actually picked up the pace even more here this lap. I'm showing that he's tracking pretty good on his lap timer, and Mark Rondeau, that last lap time of 23.6. Doug Boccignone, pretty identical. I think that just as long as you're in the tire tracks and you got that draft going, it's that opportunity. Sometimes the driver, that's all he needs is that little bit of mental nudge over the edge.
Is this going to be enough? Can he get himself up to P2 on pure pace alone? And not only that, yes, I know the slow pit stop for Steele helped bring them forward, but Doug's only going to be about 8 seconds off the lead. That was deep into the corkscrew from Rondeau. I think he managed it decently well to keep from losing too much time. But yeah, Doug, I mean, he's not that far off the lead. It just overall unbelievable pace today from the 59.
I feel like he's a little bit faster in the back half of the racetrack in comparison to this gray and orange number 11. Rondeau puts the power down very, very well coming out of the final turn and just really puts Boccignone at a stiff arm length. But then once we get up to, call it turn 5, turn 6, I think that Doug is actually a little bit better through that back half of the track. Let's see if this lap kind of proves the same.
We'll watch him head through turn 3. Both of them trying to get that throttle down and get your speed up for turn 4. Flick it through and keep it off that curb. And both of them just glancing the dust on the exit. Got to be careful that you don't get it a little bit too much of it and lose traction. Wow, he is strong through turn 5. Really gained on him there.
Much better through the entry and apex phase. Let's see about turn number 6. Pretty equal between both of those cars, and now going to have to yield to a prototype. Rondeau actually blocks the middle of the racetrack. That's going to mess up his braking point. This is going to be the opportunity. Rondeau spins it across the track. Boccignone through to second.
And that could have been an absolute disastrous moment for both of the GT3 cars. Doug gave just enough space off to the right-hand side. That was Kelderman and Scott in their battle, slicing through this at the exact same time. He could have accidentally cut them off trying to avoid, and here we go. We said that battle was brewing. It is now to a boil, and they come down into turn 1 with Dylan trying to defend the inside. Ezra decides he doesn't have enough of a run. He backs out of it.
Maybe even a little bit of a lockup there from Dylan Scott as it goes through turn number 2. I think that Kelderman has the car. He's got the pace. I wonder where the move will come from. Now, I'm going to watch him try to kind of dissect to see if there's a better area or not between the two drivers. Seemed like Kelderman was pretty on it going down into turn number 2, and actually coming out of turn number 5, he's pretty close as well.
There's definite opportunities. Oh, like right here, he gets better speed coming off of turn 6. Can he get the job done? Into the corkscrew, chops across him. Dylan with a brave defense coming into turn 9, and that will hold on to P5 for him. I thought for sure Kelderman was going to be able to keep beside him there coming into the corner.
Maybe at least force the issue into the brake zone. Now this is coming up to the GT3 leader. Let's see, Matt Steele leaves plenty of room. Leaves about 2 car widths at apex there. Make sure not to tangle with either one of these, but Dylan Scott was able to get through that final turn quite nicely, extend the gap to Kelderman. So now that we've got 6 minutes remaining, I think that Ezra might kind of look at that clock a little bit closer now.
Yeah, maybe the urgency is starting to get ticked up as the 10 wants to try and at least try and get himself a top 5. Double checking, that is worth 8 points, whereas the 6th place is only worth 6 points, so that's a 2-point swing for him. He needs everything he can get in this championship, especially since he has had a couple bad races both in the first round and then last time out as well at Monza, with only 5 points with a 7th place finish there, and he sits 3rd in the championship. Oh, he went a little bit too deep into the corkscrew as we check in with BJ Fulton, now 10 seconds ahead of AJ Roper. I feel like that has come down a little bit, but I wonder if BJ's just maybe managing things somewhat.
You literally talked about what I was going to say here, Joe. Yes, it has come down. I want to say it was about 12 seconds at its biggest when the pit stop cycles just finally ended. And it's not like AJ Roper's taking huge chunks of time out, but he's just kind of keeping him honest, like how BJ Fulton was keeping Roper honest in the first half of the race.
I feel like this is going to be a bit of an emotional victory for BJ Fulton as well, because one thing we haven't mentioned is a couple years ago, we actually had an accident at this track in real life. His brakes failed coming down into the Andretti hairpin and was injured. He couldn't even sim race for a little while. And for him to come back here, now granted, it's the virtual world, so there's maybe less risk, but to overcome what he had gone through and to say, I am quick at this track and is not going to beat me, as he almost gets beaten there going through the corkscrew for a quick moment. But he is definitely looking good today. I wonder if his pit stop was maybe just a little too short. Maybe I wonder if he's saving fuel a bit.
We'll find out. I mean, we only got 4 minutes remaining, and that story will definitely unfold for us. And, oh man, it would end in tears if there's not enough fuel in this car. And I think that if there wasn't enough fuel, you got to aggressive fuel save. Do it right now. I understand that you don't want to give up the gap, but swallow your pill, swallow your medicine right now, make your bed, and then live with it.
Exactly. And he would have found out relatively early if he had enough to try and get to the finish. So should have been trying to save from quite a few laps ago. As we watch from over the shoulder of Kelderman, he's caught back up to Scott. Needs to get a little closer than this, though. Down. Oh, wow. Once again, this is where he's so much stronger. Coming through 6, braver through that corner. And again, he brakes early and gives a lot of space, but going in too deep. Oh, he gets into the back of Dylan Scott. As he had too much momentum, Scott pulls off to the side and allows him through.
I think that was a final wave by right there, because Dylan Scott made the mistake. He was completely out of the gas, and now they're both hitting pit road right now, and Dylan Scott hits Ezra Kelderman on the pit lane entry. They're both kind of tripping over each other right now, but I don't see why these cars are on pit lane.
It's black flag, incident limits.
Oh my goodness.
I think the contact put them over.
And now they're going to race to probably fix the fast repair. Looks like Dylan Scott might just take the drive-through.
You can't stop. This is going to be a super long stop. If you've got a drive-through and you take a pit stop, it will add time to the pit stop. Oh, maybe not. It was very short. It was 11.3 seconds. So maybe he was slightly shy on fuel.
No, but Joe, he did not serve his penalty because that is not considered a drive-through. He will have to return and serve that black flag.
Yeah, that is another little error where if you haven't done pit stop racing before, you might not be aware of those special rules that iRacing has. So that basically kills that battle between them, which was looking so good up into that moment.
I don't think that BJ Fulton is fuel saving, but the gap has been cut in half. What was 12 seconds was 10 seconds and is now 5.
I think we're at 2 to go because, yeah, we at about 113 laps, it looks like he's been doing. Last lap was 115, though.
He got held up heavy by 2 GT cars in turn 11.
Part of me was wondering, is he trying to time this out so he doesn't get an extra lap here?
I don't think he's... Yeah. No, I don't think that he needs to fuel save that much. Under too much threat in the rear view to think about stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, plus I don't think he would have made it anyways, because I think he does indeed have the 2 laps to go, unless he goes massively slow here. And like you said, that would basically give away the lead. So down the hill, let's see if this is going to be a white flag, or no, this is white flag this time. Excuse me. And he's got about 25 seconds coming up to the final corner. Roper's behind by about 5.5 seconds to the line. There it is. White flag held aloft by Barney with about 12 seconds to spare. One more time around for the 82.
And I was just actually going to give this report right here, but our director, Daniel Costello, already on it. Matt Steele, I do not believe, is going to be caught by our GTP leader, so he'll be coming to get that white flag this time by. He's got a healthy 12 and a half, call it 13-second gap over Doug Boccignone in second.
And BJ Fulton finished 6th at the first race of the season. Since then, he has been on the podium every single time. Second, third, win, and he's about to make it back-to-back wins here today. It's been just impressive from BJ Fulton, not panicking when things were a little bit out of his hands early in the race. Timed his pit stop right, got the amount of fuel right, has the pace to hold it together. And as he comes up to the final turn, our first endurance race of season 2 here in 2024 for the POC is going to go to BJ Fulton in the number 82.
Terrific drive from pole position to win that one. You see AJ Roper with a flash of the lights. He will finish in second place, and then Michael Johnson a little bit further back will finish in third in that prototype class as well.
Michael Johnson with an excellent podium. I haven't talked about him because he's been a bit quiet the whole time. Kept saying he's lonesome out there. 22 seconds behind AJ Roper, 28 seconds behind the leader, but he comes home getting to spray the champagne in this one and collect more valuable points. What about Matt Steele? He's gapped it now up to 12 seconds over Doug Boccignone, who we saw had to slow up a little bit to avoid the incident he and Rondeau nearly had out there. And I think Rondeau is actually done already as he got overtaken by the leader, so he won't have a chance to even fight for that second place. But that doesn't matter for Matt Steele. He'll come home with his 5th win in a row.
Impressive. Just very, very impressive out of that driver right there. You see Kelderman celebrating with using another faster pair. And Doug Boccignone, a terrific comeback drive, right? He found himself buried early on. The pit stop strategy made up a ton of time, and here he is in second place and on the lead lap.
That's really the ethos you need in these endurance races, is you cannot give up, and he embodied that. BJ Fulton did as well, fighting back for the lead and coming home with the win ahead of AJ Roper, who looked quick at the beginning but just couldn't keep up the pace. Michael Johnson, a steady 3rd place, will be followed by Jad Duncan, the last driver on the lead lap, in 4th. Dylan Scott was P5 today with Dustin Heindel in 6th and Ezra Kelderman. It was so close to finishing P5 but had to settle for 7th in the end. Castillo and Roche were our only DNFs in the GTPs.
Over to the GT1 field in the 911 GT3 cars. Matt Steele picks up his 5th win in a row, 12 and a half seconds over Doug Boccignone. Those were the only 2 cars that finished on the lead lap in class. Mark Rondeau with a nice 3rd place finish, up actually a couple positions from where he started in 5th. Federico Del Toro with a nice comeback drive as well to finish in 4th. Jeff Schulam, the toughest man to pass today, with a top 5 finish. Robert Leclerc 6th, and John Momeyer finishing in 7th. All 7 of those GT3 cars did finish today's race.
I love to see that. Glad to see everyone stick it out to the end. And the man that is first to get to the end is BJ Fulton. BJ, congratulations. But first of all, was this one just that little bit sweeter, knowing the accident you had some time ago, that you had your injury and you came back, and I wouldn't say you defeated demons or anything, but it had to feel good to win at a track that had bested you once in real life.
Yeah, for sure. It always means a lot to have a good performance here at Laguna. A lot of laps in real life, and as you mentioned, it almost took my life. But it's a real fun track, and I still enjoyed it a lot.
Now, you kind of lost the lead there early on. AJ got ahead of you, but you eventually got it back. We were saying you didn't seem to panic. You kind of steadily worked back to him and made the pass. Was there any sort of, oh, shoot, I got to get up there, or did you feel confident that you had the pace that you'd wind up in the lead eventually?
I was really focusing on fuel savings pretty hard the whole time. So that's how I think I jumped so far ahead of him on the pits, was just a lot of fuel savings. So I wasn't too concerned that he was pulling away. I let him get away to about 5 seconds and then tried to hold it there. I was a little bit surprised that his tires seemed to fall off so drastically, though, and I was able to catch him quick at the end.
Yeah, what were the tires like? Because this is before they had the repave, the old scan of Laguna Seca. Did it feel pretty slippery, or did the track give good grip today?
No, yeah, they were. It was rough to keep these tires alive for the full stint. I did one stint in practice, and my tires came out with 7% at the end. So it was definitely a tire management, fuel management kind of race.
Well, again, congratulations on the win. It was a masterclass out there.
Thanks a lot.
That was BJ Fulton, your winner in the GTPs, and I believe Joey's caught up with the Man of Steel, who won for the 5th time in a row.
Yeah, caught up with Matt Steele, the Man of Steel, Superman, whatever you want to call him. 5 in a row, dude. Congrats.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was a fun one.
90 minutes of fun, it seems like. Were you worried about the pit stop at all and those guys really cutting in that time delta gap?
Yes, I was. As soon as I pit and I was coming out back on, I saw Shulam, and I knew I was going to get in behind him. And I knew that he had been running about a half second slower than my pace, which was, made me nervous because I knew that Mark was, kind of matching me, maybe just a little bit off. And so getting stuck behind him, I thought I hit way too early, and so I knew the other guys were going to run long and have fresher tires with lighter fuel, and so I was planning to make the most after that pit to build a big gap up, but that kind of got spoiled as soon as I pulled out. So it was just a scramble to try and get around Jeff as quickly as possible. And once I was able to do that, Mark did his pit and he was 3 seconds back, and I was able to build a gap from there. But it got a little hairy there for a bit, but it worked out.
Are you going to focus maybe a little bit more on the strategy for the future enduros over there? Because I look at that time gap and I'm like, okay, yeah, you won by 12 seconds, but I feel like you could have won by 25.
Yeah, I think I probably will. I haven't done an enduro with this group yet, or an enduro in this car. So when I was doing testing over the week, it seemed like the weight penalty for fuel was pretty severe, and I was able to turn a much quicker consistent pace with about 18, 19 gallons of fuel instead of the full 27. And so I just figured I'd split it in half and just stay on, medium lightweight fuel for the whole 90 minutes. And it probably would have been fine if I hadn't have come out right behind Jeff. I would have been able to build that gap back up, and it probably would have been no problem. I don't know. I'm not actually sure that I would have changed it because, like I said, the time penalty is pretty severe. It's like almost a second once the tank's full. So, I think it was all right.
I mean, I would say that it worked out just fine. You're sitting here in the winner's circle collecting 5 in a row. So, no harm, no foul whatsoever. Congratulations on the terrific performance and picking up another win. Is there anybody you want to say hi to?
Oh, just my family who might be watching right now. And thanks to you guys for putting on a great show.
Well, that was Matt Steele just absolutely dominating the GT1 category out here this season.
That takes us to second place in the GTPs, where we've got AJ Roper ready to talk to us. AJ, you came home second best today, but BJ said he noticed that it looked like your tires fell off. Is that what you think cost you in the end?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I was working on my own setup this weekend, and I didn't quite have enough at the end of that stint, and just a few mistakes. He definitely had some pace on me.
Now, the other thing I wonder about is you had a 42-second pit stop, and BJ was in for only 32 seconds. He said he was saving fuel. Was it really that much of a difference, or did you put the wrong amount in?
Well, I made a bit of a mistake at the as I was coming off a pit road. I thought I was speeding, then I compensated, and then I forgot to get my pit limiter off, and so I kind of really made him messed it up pretty good.
So it was a penalty. Okay, so that
not a penalty. No. I had my pit limiter on. I sped too fast, and then I tripped my pit limiter, and then I didn't take it off for like a few seconds, and just a complete mess.
Well, it wasn't a perfect race, but you still collected a second place, and I'm sure that's going to be important, especially considering you had 3 third places up till now. So surely next stop is going to be top step of the podium.
Wow, we'll try, man. It was a good race. I enjoyed it. Congrats to BJ and Michael Johnson. That was a fun event. Had a good time.
Well, I'm glad you had fun. We definitely enjoyed watching you guys battling at the front. And again, congratulations on a podium.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. Have a good one. Take care.
That was P2, AJ Roper. One more to go. I think we're going to have Joey talking to second place and GT1's Doug.
Yeah, it looks like we got Doug Boccignone joining us. A huge comeback drive from a little bit of a disastrous start. How do you feel after that one?
Hi, Joey. I feel pretty good. It was it was a disastrous start, but thank goodness for the full course caution. I was able to pit for my fast repair, but I forgot to actually take it. So that was a wasted stop, but I don't think it really cost me anything.
What was going through your mind there on the opening lap? I know that you always have to be careful about cars, dive bombing, but I don't think you were expecting a GTP car to kind of come out there at apex at you.
No, I mean, I saw him spinning, but I thought he was going to be able to stay on the pit out, the motorcycle road. But, so I just drove where I could. I mean, I had guys on my outside, so I didn't have much options. So I kind of was the meat in the middle of the sandwich.
I guess my last question for you is, once you're at that point, right, it's the low point in the race and it just started, you have to dig yourself out of the hole. What kind of mental place do you put yourself in to do that and to come back and finish second?
I just put my head down and just tried to do fast laps, and I got by a few guys and got behind Rondeau and was pacing with him for a while. Decided to pit early to try to undercut him, but I was disappointed to not achieve that when he came out from his pit stop. But I think he had a mechanical, so I got by him.
We were watching that undercut. You got dang close on getting that undercut, so you definitely made up a bunch of time with that. Congrats on the second place finish. Is there anybody you want to say hi to?
Yeah, I want to thank my wife Bonnie for supporting all my racing, both sim and real life.
That was Doug Boccignone driving the blue and green number 59, finishing second place today at Laguna Seca.
I'd say we got a pretty entertaining endurance race tonight, so a big thank you to the community for bringing us back for another season of coverage, as well as to our sponsors, Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Game Changer Wealth, helping you become a game changer with wealth. Thanks to the team today, Joey, Daniel, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. Now, next time, if you thought survival was important here, we're going to Detroit, and that'll be Monday, October 7th at 10 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we've got listed here, but until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
Wow.